Ben Roberts transfers away from Oregon, and that might be a good sign. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150, $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Got my man Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503, friend of the program, joining me here on today's show. We'll get to the spring game. We'll talk the new basketball court coming in as Oregon goes into the Big Ten. But Ryan, Ben Roberts leaves the defensive line room. I wouldn't say I was shocked. I was a little surprised to hear that he decided to leave that defensive line room. I'd say a little surprised because he was one of the veterans in there, along with Keon Ware-Hudson. And I think this could mean one of two good things. Number one, Oregon could be getting Derek Harmon, the Michigan State defensive line transfer. They've been tied to him. And the second good thing that it could be, not that Ben Roberts wasn't a good player, because the reason I was a little surprised is, man, I thought he had a really good spring game. I thought he looked as powerful and impactful as he's ever been. But the second thing it could mean is that crop of 2023 blue chip defensive linemen, of course, Johnny Bowens transferred out of the room as well. I think it could mean that those guys are ready to contribute right now and that they are really, really good. That's my take. What was yours?
Yeah, I like that take. I think that's a pretty positive way to look at it. I was kind of bummed personally because I think he's a great player for that defense. I think he's a great guy. And he was a guy who I personally thought was going to have a big breakout year this year. And he looked good in the spring game, just like you said. But yeah, you're right. I think there's something to be said about the transfer portal is what we see of the transfer portal is not necessarily everything that happens behind the scenes of the transfer portal. And it feels like there's reports of incoming people that are going to end up pushing some people out. There's worries about numbers and scholarship numbers. And I don't know how much pressure guys get or this, that, or the other, and how much tampering there is going on or how much offering. I mean,
there is a lot of tampering.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of tampering. Don't be bothered by it if you hear anything about it. Everybody is that's just standard operating procedure.
Yeah, so it's just a wild time right now. And these couple years with all this stuff without much regulation right now is just kind of the Wild West. And so yeah, great points. I don't think it was that much of a shock, and I do think that the younger guys are really good.
Yeah, and I like that group. Even without Roberts and Bowens, and we didn't really know what Johnny Bowens was going to be, but you figure that these two guys are transferring out because of playing time, and that second defensive tackle position, Ryan, I think is up for grabs. I think at the edge positions, you've got your guys set. Jordan Birch on one side and some combination. Tatum Tuioti might be the best of those three, now true sophomore edge rushers with him and Mateo and Blake Purchase. I like Mateo and he's done great things, and I think he is going to be even better this year. But Tatum Tuioti's a beast. I mean, that guy
and super smart.
Yeah. And you see him covering Terrence Ferguson down the field in the spring. That was one of the craziest sequences, I think, in the entire game. I had to do a triple take of like, wait a minute, that's a defensive end guarding the Ducks' NFL caliber tight end down the field and kind of holding his own there. But you got Jamari Caldwell starting at one defensive tackle spot, and that second one, look, we don't know. The coach is not going to give us a two deep until, sometime probably just before the Idaho game on August 31st. But that spot, by all accounts, is up for grabs. And Roberts was one of the guys that could have fit into the fold. So now it feels like it's even more of an open competition.
I would agree. And I think that Amari Washington, Mikhail Gardner, I think played very well this spring and looked very good. Looked like they're ready to take the next step. And Tony Gray as well. I think he played pretty well. I mean, I think when people were talking all offseason about how, we didn't know about the depth for the defensive line. I don't think the depth of the defensive line is that big of an issue. I think there's a lot of guys who might be a little unproven, but I think there's a lot of guys in there that they can be competitive. And I also think that the transfer portal, like you said, might not be done.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's the move that comes next. By the way, Aiden Breland, maybe he's going to work himself into the mix. I'm glad you brought up Tioni Gray, who is a 4-star defensive lineman in the class of 2024.
A lot of plays.
Yeah, he was just around, and I thought the defensive front was maybe the biggest individual winner as a position group. I thought the receivers were really good, a lot of depth, and playmakers showcase their talents there. But you were at the spring game, Ryan. Was that defensive line as good as it looked on TV?
Yeah, I think defensive line, again, I think that's the big storyline here, right? It's been the story all. I kind of think of it almost like what we were doing last year with the offensive line. All last year we were talking about, well, is the offensive line going to be able to handle the new crop, whatever? They came back as good or better the next year. I think the defensive line will be fine. I did think the offense was very vanilla. I thought the play calling on the offense was very vanilla, and which is fine. It's expected because this is a really good team. They're not going to give anything away. In the last couple of years, they were kind of gunslinging a little bit more, and now they kind of know what they have, and they have real depth. And you're right. I think the defensive line looked really good, especially those 4-down defensive stands, right? They got real close to the goal line a couple different times on both sides, and yeah, the guys look really good. And Ben Roberts is one of those guys who was in the middle making some plays there. So again, transfer portal giveth and transfer portal taketh away. Yeah,
and I think this is, a loss for the Ducks, but one they're capable of sustaining given the depth in that room. One position group I haven't heard anything about with regards to the portal, Ryan, is linebacker. And I think Oregon's top 3 backers, super solid. Bossa, Jacobs, Devin Jackson. I think that's a fantastic group.
I agree.
But after that, I feel like there are questions there. And are you a little surprised we haven't heard anything tied to a linebacker potentially coming in via the portal for the Ducks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some guys who have played there. I think they're pretty comfortable with Bryce Betcher, and Jerry Mixon. I thought he was flying around in the spring game a lot, but you're right. The way that room looks, it kind of feels like they're treating the inside linebackers like they treat the quarterbacks, where they're now getting the helmet with the communication. They're the one guy that we try to keep out there as many downs as possible.
Yep.
They're kind of the, quarterback of the defense. So I don't know how much that group rotates as much as, let's say, the defensive line in an average quarter even, how many plays they take off. So that's an interesting take. Yeah. Connor Soley as well. Maybe, he's another veteran guy who's seen a lot of action. So there's plenty of guys in that room, but I agree. I don't know about I also think that room is so dominated by those first 2 guys, and they love Devin Jackson. That guy has absolutely taken a huge leap, super fast. And so, yeah, that's a great take, man. I don't know about what that could be. That could be another place of need, especially it's going to be next year. I mean, you're going to have to replace 2 seniors. I mean, holy moly. Right.
And I think they brought in the 3 true freshmen. Dylan Williams isn't here yet, of course, but Kamar Mathuti, Braden Platt, we saw them in the spring game. I thought Mathuti was pretty clearly not quite ready. Jay Harris kind of introduced him to college football a little bit with a couple of bulldozing stiff arms there, but still more takeaways from the spring game, including Ryan's thoughts on Austin Novosad coming up next. After we talk about our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to hit pause here, talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends, all that and more. Plus, Monopoly Go always feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there's always timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, Ryan. So I thought the quarterbacks looked good for Oregon. I thought Gabriel got off to a rough start, settled in, looked solid. Guy is what we, expected him to be. Dante Moore made a couple of nice throws. Man, he had a case of the drops for his pass catchers. I don't know what was going on with T-Ferg. I'm not worried about it, but that was he was dropping. He was one of the most sure-handed guys on the team, and he had 2-3 drops in the game. Just very, very unlike him. But Austin Novosad was kind of the quarterback that I think surprised me the most compared to what I expected from him going into the game. And I think he's clearly put on weight, which he needed to do coming out of high school. I think his arm looks really good. He looked comfortable in the pocket. He had some zip. I was really impressed. What did you see from Novosad?
Yeah, I agree. And everything we've heard from the coaching staff and everything else is that they really love him, and he throws a great ball, and the receivers really love, again, I think that the way the transfer portal works is you're always going to have these guys come and go. A guy like Novosad is a guy that you don't even know if he's going to be at Oregon or not. That guy could be starting for somewhere else in the future. We don't know. But he came aboard. Will Stein's got a good relationship with Will Stein. It feels like they put him in a good position. They brought him in really early. I don't know if you noticed that in the spring game, but they brought him in really early, and then they let him go. They let him throw the ball around. I think his ball is great. I love his little back shoulder fade. I think is one of the best plays.
That was good. One
of the best plays of the game for throwing the ball. They didn't throw the ball that much because you knew it was going to be conservative. You knew they were going to hand the ball off most of the time. So, again, I think that good team, good players across the board. Spring game right now, this year, just kind of play out a string a little bit. Make some plays, get in the locker room, call it good. And it feels like they got kind of victim of putting out a vanilla product on a lot of different levels. Doesn't mean the quarterback can't still make plays, but they didn't throw the ball that much, especially compared to the last couple of years.
Well, I thought the times that they did throw the ball, that Novosad back shoulder throw to true freshman Jeremiah McLaughlin, working on Sione Laulea, who might be a player in Oregon secondary this year, the number one JUCO corner in the 2024 cycle. I looked at that connection and thought, man, that could be a duo in 2025. Really that could be a tandem. But here's the thing. Dante Moore's there. And on paper, Dante Moore's the more talented guy. But the way that I'd encourage Oregon fans to think about what you saw from those two guys is, before the spring game, you'd assume, okay, Dante Moore, who started at UCLA, was a more highly rated recruit than Novosad was coming out of high school. That's going to be the starter in 2025. But in that spring game, Ryan, what did Dante Moore show? And I thought he looked fine. But what did Dante Moore show that Austin Novosad didn't show?
Good point. That's a good point. I like Dante Moore's versatility a little bit. I think he can throw the ball from a variety of different angles. He can work the pocket a little bit better. I think he can run the ball a little bit better if he needs to. He's a little more elusive, maybe. Novosad's kind of your classic put the foot in the ground and throw the ball type of quarterback, which is great. We need those guys. And I think, the game has evolved so much. The quarterback game has evolved so much. I mean, you got to be able to do everything. And I think Dylan Gabriel, is a perfect example of being an old quarterback, an elder statesman. Look at Bo. I mean, think about Bo early in his career compared to the end of his career. Completely different guy, completely different quarterback. And you had to kind of go through each one of those stages to be the actual quarterback that he needs to be. Hey, you still need to get a couple yards. You're still going to put it, tuck it and go if you need to. Even when he needed to get that first down when he couldn't even walk with that Utah game where he broke or hurt the ankle, still dove forward, got the first down. That helped get him some points in the NFL draft. I swear to gosh, So, the way that I look at quarterbacks is you got to do a variety of different things. What Austin Novosad can do right now is throw the ball. He checks that box quickly. Can he get out of the pocket? Can he elude the rush? Can he call the offenses? Can he put the guys in the right place? All that sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff you're paying Dylan Gabriel to do. That's the sort of stuff that veteran guy, calm everybody down, put people in the right place, check out of this, check out of that, see what the defense is doing, chess match sort of stuff. The early stuff is being a college quarterback is just, can you throw the ball? And Novosad can definitely throw the ball. I think he can probably throw the ball better than anybody in that room. I mean, the guy throws a really beautiful ball. Just
he does.
Boom, textbook. keeps the elbow up, where Dante Moore likes that elbow down. I mean, he likes that little half winger.
Yeah, he's got a little
Technique
Mahomes to his
off.
motion. It's kind of a flick, right?
Big
Dante
time.
Moore is more of a flick. Novosad, I think, uses his body a little more. But
the whole perfect turn.
Yeah, I think both guys, or maybe Peyton Manning's a better, kind of comp for Novosad's throwing motion there. But I think both guys throw a really catchable ball and have got a supreme amount of talent. And I just looked at that game and went, if you're the coaches and that's what you're seeing in practice every day from those two guys, and it sounds like that is kind of what they're showcasing on a day-to-day basis, it wasn't an anomaly, then going into 2025, that's a quarterback battle. I think that's a situation where those two guys will battle it out in the spring, and whoever loses the battle either decides to stick around or more likely transfers out. And then your backup quarterback is one of Achilles Smith Jr. or Luke Moga. And while, since I mentioned Luke Moga, holy crap, that guy's so fast.
Super fast.
I mean,
and we watched him last year in track. I mean, you saw it on the track. I mean,
he just looks. He looked more ready than I thought he would.
Well, I would agree with that, and I think enrolling early, give him a leg up on the competition a little bit. He's excited to be here, man. He wants to compete, and the way that he goes about his game, he can compete right now because he can hand the ball off. He can get the zone read. He can get out there with his legs and make something happen. And when he's open and make a throw or two, he can make a throw or two. That's all expected of him right now. He's not expected to go in there and have any sort of command of the offense or throw the ball over the place or make all the throws. He's a true freshman in a stacked room. There's no expectations. It's perfect for him. It's like going to a quarterback Disneyland. He just gets to go in there and work out and just get better at his craft. And again, like we talked about Bo Nix maturing over those years and becoming a better passer at the end of his career, Luke Moga will probably be on the same type of trajectory. Starts out very fast, got to go forward, got to change up a little bit, especially if there's an injury happening, which happens to some of those running quarterbacks. They get vulnerable, they get out of the pocket, they get a little wild, and crazy things happen.
One of the other takeaways for individual players I had from this game for the Ducks, I thought the receivers were great, like across the board. Kyler Casper, that was a touchdown. If you slowed it down and went replay, You're not going to do that in a spring game. But if you were in a game, he dragged his back foot before the front foot hit down out of bounds. That was a great catch. You had Jeremiah McLaughlin make a really good play. Like the receivers Evan Stewart looks like Evan Stewart I think is going to live up to the hype. Yeah, Tez is Tez. I mean, we know what he is, and I don't want to undersell how good he is because he's awesome. But the other thing that I looked at, and I've talked about this on the show previously, about whether it'll be Whittington 1A, James 1B, a true split, or James 1A. Jordan James looks like running back 1 to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And you don't want to lose in a position because of injury, but if you're starting spot, I think Noah played just fine. I've always kind of thought that Noah was the better second running back because he's more of the guy out the back.
Did Noah play in the game?
No.
Oh, okay.
But my point is when him and Bucky were there in the backfield, it felt like to me that it was nice to see a change of pace back a little bit, and that it does. If you want to reverse him, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. If you want to start him. It's really about who's finishing the games, right? But I do think that Jordan James is the more complete back, better between the tackles, maybe a little bit. But I still think that Noah brings a lot to the table, especially out of the backfield. I think he does a really good job picking up blitzes. Again, smart running back, been around a long time. But out of the backfield, catch the ball, turn, go. That little move right there is really, really crafty for him. And I still think that Jordan James is just so good. I was so impressed with him his freshman year that he didn't put the ball in the turf as a freshman and in absolutely crucial positions, fourth down plays, goal line plays. And then he lost all this weight and became much, much leaner and faster between his freshman and sophomore year. It's funny to see these guys get on the meal plans, get on the weight plans, because some guys lose weight, some guys gain weight. Either way, they're stronger and faster. And so it's incredible to me on the running back position. I also think that the running back position has some depth to it as well, because I think Jaden Lamar is one of those guys who's going to do some things this year. I think he's going to get his chances and get his opportunities, and I think he looks pretty strong in the middle as well.
Yeah, and I thought Jay Harris, frankly, was
Oh, strong.
a little bit more impressive than Lamar. And look, I think Jane Lamar's solid. I think he's, a slightly bigger version of Travis Dye, who was a great back for the Ducks for
It's
several
good
years.
comp.
But
Yep.
Jay Harris looks like Najee Harris. I mean,
Jay Harris is big, dude.
yeah, he's massive, but he moves. He's physical. He's got he's got
Runs
everything you
downhill.
need. Yeah, very very effective downhill runner, but he's got a little speed to him. He's got a great stiff arm. He can make it work on the perimeter as well. I was thoroughly impressed, and there wasn't that much tape available on Jay Harris because he was at a Division II school, but we've got Division I tape of him now, and he looks like a guy that's ready to contribute. So I agree with you that I think the running backs are deep and in a really, really good spot. So too is Dana Altman's team because they've made some notable portal additions, and they're getting a new court as they go into a new conference. We'll talk about that next. After we talk first about our friends at Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can save up to 60%, which last time I checked is even more than half, buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. The lowest price guarantee with Game Time guarantees they'll give it to you or they credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Ryan, let's talk some hopes. And maybe the biggest story of the offseason is not adding Brandon Angel from Stanford or Des Lindsey from the JUCO ranks or Raheem Moss from Toledo. Oregon's getting a new basketball court, and that is a relief to many a Duck fans out there and casual fans who have tuned in to watch Oregon play on television. Look, you've been around Oregon and a fan of the Ducks since the MacArthur Court days, and I vaguely remember them, but I've mostly in my life known it to be Matthew Knight Arena, and it's a big, beautiful, great place. I kind of liked the court. I see why people didn't, though. What do you make of them getting a new court? Do you think it's a coincidence they're doing it first year they go into the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think, all those things I like. First and foremost, I love the reference of MacArthur Court is like such an important place for so many of us old Duck fans. That place was absolutely rocking. And they had all sorts of different courts too. The idea of the court, yes, it makes sense they're doing something with the Big Ten. I also, though, wouldn't be surprised if it was a very similar design, just different colorway. Similar type of structure. Feels like you're in the woods, deep in the woods theory, all that sort of stuff, but different color. The original inception did not turn out, I don't think, the way that they wanted it to. And so I don't know if they were necessarily all that stoked with it right when it came out, especially on television. It looked totally different in person than it did on television. The light, the way it hit it, and the glare and whatnot, it didn't turn out well. And especially the first year when we didn't even have the freaking line down the middle, the half court line, because we didn't want it to separate the O. We wanted the O to stand out.
Yeah.
And then we had that weird CBI or CIT or whatever, CTI or whatever it was. And the guy goes and steps on the line, doesn't even know it, gets called for it. And the Ducks get the ball at the very end. We won the thing because of it. Great in year one. There's a little history for it. Anyway, I like the idea that we're changing it because I think you can't have something stay the whole time, especially on a basketball court. Basketball courts need to change a little bit. The other exciting thing I think is really great is Oregon volleyball is going to a humongous volleyball conference where they all have their own court with just the volleyball court on it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is blacked out. I think you're going to get that for volleyball. So I think Oregon's going to have a volleyball court that's separate than the Ducks basketball, which will be cool. I would just like it to be brighter. I would like the colors to be, if they're going to have the trees, I'd like them to be green and not looking dead. I thought that a lot of people thought that it looked dead, and then I couldn't kind of unsee that. I like the idea of it feeling like the way that it was described to me was you're supposed to be like you're laying on the ground and you're looking up at the trees, and they're kind of do a 360 kind of a thing. And in the spot that you're in, that was kind of the vision of like what it would look like being on the ground and looking up at the trees, because the idea of the tall firs and all these kind of remnants of different, they were trying to do all that sort of stuff. But I do think it would be cool to do a completely different court that doesn't look at all like the old court. And I would love to have the Van Horn Designs duck, the one that the basketball team has used. It's kind of the new age looking duck. Nike brass.
Yeah, I think it's center court.
Something else that's different, that's just basketball related.
I think it's center court. I've gotten a couple of different questions about, what I want the design to look like. Obviously, I'm not opposed to having an O at center court because it's iconic, but like the Fighting Ducks logo on those 2011 Apple Green Cal jerseys, or the ones on they're on several other ones too, like the Dylan Brooks. I think when Oregon played UCLA, they had the all whites. Brooks hit the game winner. That duck, that's the one you're referring to, right?
That's the like Nike duck. If you look up like the newer, like there's been things that the Ducks have used for just basketball, and it's kind of a duck that they've just done for basketball. Like they came out this year, they had the shirts, the white shirts that they gave the whole crowd or whatever, and it had that thing on there, it had that logo on there. It's a Van Horn design logo. I'll see if I can find it for you.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
I totally agree with the idea of just doing things different. Go back in history. If I can do history lesson really quickly. One of my favorite court designs was of the like 1950s and 1960s, super early, where they had the cartoon duck like spinning the basketball. The way that they used to do the duck logo was the duck would always be doing the sport. So he would be in the football helmet, or he'd be like with the baseball bat.
Yeah, I know what you're talking. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And they would have a series of these. Well, they had the one where he was like spinning the basketball, almost like the leprechaun for the Celtics, and that kind of stance. And they had that in the key. And I thought that was a really cool one. You can go back and look at all the different pictures from that court, but that to me was my favorite. That also I grew up with, where it said in the key, the pit. So that was the one from my era, but it would be cool to see some sort of I think you're going to still see the mat that looks like the Temple Gate type of look that says MATT. That's that same logo. I think you're probably still going to have the same type of Kilkenny Court branding with the little like node to like San Diego and the other little trinkets on there. So I just think that if you're going to do it in a similar design, you got to brighten it up. It looked really yellow and it looked kind of orangish and brown in a lot of ways, especially like my son, for example, had a totally different perspective as a photographer. He didn't like some of the pictures on some parts of the court, and other parts of the court, he did like the picture, right? He liked them more in the middle of the court, like crossing the O, because that was where it was the brightest. And then when it got down to the baseline, it would get darker, and it would change the structure of the picture, the lighting.
Gotcha.
Kind of crazy stuff. So that I'd never thought about.
Yeah, and I think that as they go into the Big Ten with a schedule that they just released, I think the timing is not coincidental. Like they're trying to...
Yeah, that's a new brand.
Yeah, I agree. But they did release the Big Ten schedule. They have some home-only opponents and some away-only opponents. Yeah. But, whatever the new design ends up being, I think Oregon fans are going to get to see some pretty legit teams and programs. You got Illinois that was just in the Elite Eight, Purdue that was just in the national championship game, Indiana, and then there's also Maryland, Nebraska, Rutgers, and Northwestern. And it's long trips for a lot of those teams. And Fred Hoiberg just did a heck of a job with Nebraska. But, I look at the Big Ten Conference, and it's usually a good basketball league. They put a lot of teams in the tournaments that have a scattered success rate, shall we say, in the big dance. But boy, Ryan, I feel not good. I feel great about what Oregon has done this offseason with Raheem Moss from Toledo, Brandon Angel from Stanford, Des Lindsey from the JUCO ranks. I think they've got depth, size, athleticism, shooting, experience, returning production. I love where this team is at. I think they can be a top 4 or 5 seed next year in the NCAA tournament.
I agree. And I don't think you're going to get any East Coast bias anymore. We're in the East Coast now. They've killed our conference. So it's like we're in there now. And I agree. I think there's a lot of depth on this team. I think that everybody staying would really gave you some confidence to this team. I was around this team a lot at the very end of the year because I was in Vegas for that Pac-12 championship game. And the vibes were great. And it was a good team. It was a good team to be around. You could tell the guys wanted to be there. The energy was great. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I like the schedule. I didn't want the Ducks to go to Rutgers. Rutgers comes to Oregon. I love the pod of the West Coast. If we can talk about schedule for a second, that UCLA, USC, Washington home and home thing. I love that. Love that. Going away, I just looked immediately as to, what are some of those weird travel games, because they don't necessarily have the travel schedule all dialed in the way we had it with the Pac-12, where you had your Arizona trip or your Bay Area trip. This could be a Thursday night in Happy Valley for Penn State and a Saturday night in East Lansing for Michigan State. So the way that this breaks down to go away is really interesting. So I like the idea of playing at Michigan State. These are some classic places. Iowa. And yeah, you're right. The home schedule looks great. So I'm a season ticket holder for the men's basketball. I'm going to try to go to more games this year than I normally would. I'm going to try to probably go to some of the Thursday night games that I normally wouldn't go to as a teacher. It's a tough turnaround to get down there, get back, get up and, do it Friday morning or whatever, just to go right back to it Saturday. But I really like the home schedule. Like you said, Indiana is one of my favorite teams in the whole country. I love their warm-ups, some of my favorite warm-ups in the whole country. The Terps, Maryland, what a great tradition they have. Nebraska, Northwestern, like you said, Purdue, Illinois, great teams. But I was concerned with the Rutgers trip. That's probably the farthest one, right? So
yeah, and they've got to make it to Eugene. That's a long way from Piscataway to Eugene. Piscataway, New Jersey to Eugene, Oregon. Welcome to college athletics in 2024. Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503. Great stuff. As always, my man, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much, Spencer, you man.
Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.